people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the mother relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. It's official! Later on next month, on the 24th, Terry Harper will be taking on Hannah Rankin for her WBA title on the undercard of Leigh Wood versus Mauricio Lara. No easy fights, no easy touches on this card, which is set to be going head-to-head with the Queensberry Promotions and BT Sport pay-per-view, the heavyweight fight between Joe Joyce and former champion Joseph Parker.
I have to be honest, these are two very solid cards.
Both of them. The Matchroom show, the Queensberry Promotion show. We've been talking about Rankin versus Harper.
This fight,
Hannah Rankin's title defense as reigning WBA junior middleweight champion against Terry Harper, how she had the option of facing Terry or unifying titles with Natasha Jonas, how the Harper offer was reported to be a lot bigger than the Jonas offer, and the perils associated with this fight. Don't expect this fight to end the way that Jonas versus Namas did. Natasha Jonas, who ventured north of 135 pounds, the same way Terry's about to venture north of 135 pounds.
don't expect this fight to end the same way that fight did.
Because initially, Natasha Jonas was supposed to be fighting someone else. She was supposed to be fighting Poland's own former junior middleweight champion, Eva Pietrzkowska, and Chris Namas was a late replacement. Hannah Rankin's no late replacement.
Oh, no, she's had a full camp.
She's not some stand-in. She will have had ample preparation for the fight the night of it. The same goes to Terry Harper, who's taking on the same risk that Natasha Jonas just took.
This is a little bit riskier.
Terry Harper, who fought only once late last year in November, that knockout loss to Alicia Baumgartner, Terry has since rebounded in March of this year, earlier this year, and that was at lightweight. This fight is 3 of 4 divisions north of lightweight at junior middleweight. I don't know if there are any catchweight stipulations or rehydration clauses. Those details will likely be made available as the fight date approaches, but in any event, Hannah Rankin's no slouch. She's a tough customer, and she saw action
2 times last year and only once this year. She's in action in May.
She's on a 3-fight winning streak. Both fighters have seen action in the last 12 months, so neither one of them has any ring rust or cobwebs they need to shake off. Hannah Rankin will have experience, size, some power, and durability on her side, as she is the natural junior middleweight, whereas Terry Harper will have speed and athleticism, movement, and sharpness on her side, though there is a question as to whether or not the added weight will slow her down. Hannah Rankin sports a professional record of 12 wins, 5 losses with no draws, 3 knockouts, only having been stopped once by the hard-punching Savannah Marshall. And there's no shame in that, because Savannah Marshall is one of the hardest punchers anywhere at or around these weights. Terry Harper, she don't pack anywhere near as big a punch as Savannah Marshall.
Terry sports a professional record of 12 wins, 1 loss with 1 draw.
6 knockouts, with every single one of those 6 knockouts having taken place in the super featherweight division.
As we all know, Terry Harper has been knocked out at least once, late last year, by Alicia Baumgartner.
She ended up getting knocked out again. Is this a miscalculation on the part of Team Harper? Well, that's why we tune in. That's why we watch. We watch to find out.
Is Terry going to become a 2-division champion, or is she going to get her clock clean?
There was talk from Team Harper of the struggles to continue to make the super featherweight limit of 130 pounds, and the role that had to play, could have played, in her knockout loss to Alicia Baumgartner. Up there at 154 pounds, up there at junior middleweight, she certainly won't be drained, won't be gaunt, won't have left it all in the gym trying to make weight. This is a new weight for her, so that's one less thing to worry about.
But will the added weight slow her down?
I don't have the answer to that question. That's something we won't find out out until the night of the fight. What's working for Terry Harper here is that because she's a naturally smaller fighter, she may have a slight speed advantage. She is certainly, to the eye, a more athletic fighter than Hannah Rankin.
She's not as flat-footed.
Terry Harper is a lot more light on her feet than Hannah Rankin is, and her best punches really are her straight punches. One of her money punches is the lead hand, the jab hand.
Whereas Hannah Rankin's best punches are her bent arm punches. Her sweet spot is mid-range to inside.
Difficult as it might be, Terry Harper's got to keep this a boxing match. She's got to stick and move and stay on the outside, 1 and 2 punches at a time. Careful not to allow Hannah Rankin to close the gap on her and pin her down. She's got to use the ring, move lateral.
Don't let it turn into a gunfight because Hannah Rankin might have brought the big guns to the gun show.
Hannah Rankin, she's got to try to close the gap on Terry. Cut the ring off.
Crowd Terry Harper and force her to trade because that's Hannah's best bet, to overpower Terry Harper, to overwhelm her.
Hannah Rankin has to be busy. She has to throw punches and bunches, because if this becomes a boxing match, a cerebral fighters kind of fight, that favors Terry Harper more than it favors Hannah.
I feel like this is make or break for Terry Harper, who's not a champion right now. She's not a champion anymore.
I don't know how many fights she has left on her existing Matchroom contract, though I do get the sense that if she loses this thing, if she falters,
They might drop her from the promotional banner. They just might.
things to think about as the pressure, it is on. This is a broad leap.
A big leap of faith that Terry Harper and Steffi Bull are taking.
Terry Harper's not a natural junior middleweight. Are they about to find that out the hard way when they share the ring with Hannah Rankin late next month?
If Hannah Rankin keeps her belt and she wins this thing, she can look to unify titles with the winner of Jonas versus Bergul.
Or Canada's own Marie-Eve Dicaire on the Yvonne Michelle Jim side of things.
She beats Terry Harper and sends her south of junior middleweight with her tail between her legs. Those are her options.
This is an excellent card. No easy fights for anyone. Card that's set to go head-to-head with the Joe Joyce versus Joseph Parker fight.
IBO champion Maxie Hughes is going to be taking on former IBF featherweight champion Kid Galahad, who has since moved up in weight.
The main event, we're going to see Lee Wood take on Bronco Lara.
Yeah, not doing Lee Wood any fucking favors with this fight.
We're putting him in there with Mauricio Lara in the fall. Why didn't they just revisit a Mick Conlon fight? The first fight was a Fight of the Year candidate. Lee Wood emerged the victor. The second fight would have likely gotten Lee Wood a nice check, nice payday.
I'm not complaining, I'm just saying this is ballsy.
Lee Wood's no spring chicken. He's 34 years old. He's approximately 10 years older than Bronco Lara. He ain't got all the time in the world to make big prices and big paydays. He saw action 2 times last year, already fought once this year in March, the Mick Conlon fight we talked about.
Lee Wood's won his last 3 fights by way of technical knockout since having rebounded off the loss to James Dickens.
He's been on some hell of a run. Kansu knockout, the Mick Conlon knockout. Lee Wood is really coming to his own, and he has hit his stride, but he may hit a wall when he shares the ring with Mauricio Lara, who I think is a harder puncher than Lee Wood.
Mauricio Lara, who trashed Josh Warrington upon their initial meeting, had a second fight, a rematch that ended before it got to turn into a fight.
They've gotten him another fight abroad, another fight across the pond. He's going to be taking on hard-punching Lee Wood, who is a harder puncher than Josh Warrington.
Josh Warrington, who Mauricio Lara fought 2 times last year.
Spent all of last year taking on Josh Warrington. Kicked off this year, knocking Emilio Sanchez's block off. That was some fucking knockout in that fight. Ended in the 3rd round. Hit the guy so hard even the referee fell down.
And if Lee Wood is fighting Mauricio Lara, that means he's not fighting Leo Santa Cruz.
This story has taken a lot of twists and turns because this isn't the first we've heard of Lee Wood potentially taking on Mauricio Lara. But, we heard that. Then we heard that they were entering into talks with Leo Santa Cruz, and I guess that those talks must have broken down or a step-aside deal must have been reached. We can only assume that since Leo Santa Cruz ain't satisfying his mandatory challenger in Lee Wood, he's going to move forward with that unification match. The unification match with his countryman, Ray Vargas, this division's reigning WBC champion over there on the PBC side of things. And that's a good fight in and of itself.
But it confirms what I always thought. I just couldn't see Lee Wood versus Leo Santa Cruz as a fight coming into fruition. I didn't think it would happen.
Those of you that follow this channel will know that that's what I said from the very beginning. I just can't see Leo Santa Cruz crossing over to DAZN, and I'm not sure that Lee Wood will cross over to the PBC, because if he does, he might end up making less money than he'd make staying on his own side of the street. You saw what the split was, 75-25 in favor of Leo Santa Cruz.
Depending on what the size of the pot is, if the pot is $1 million or a little over $1 million, well, Leo's gonna get most of that.
And Lee Wood will just get little over 100,000, couple 100,000, nothing major. He likely stands to make more money taking on Mauricio Lara in his own neck of the woods than taking on Leo Santa Cruz here in America on the PBC side of things.
So if you're wondering why is he deciding to take on a high-risk, low-reward guy like Mauricio Lara,
It's simple. There's a chance he loses to Leo Santa Cruz here in America. There's a chance he loses to Mauricio Lara in the United Kingdom. So which risky fight gets him the most reward? Which fight gets him more money? And based on that 75-25 split, coming here to fight Leo Santa Cruz, it wouldn't have got Lee Wood much money. But fighting Mauricio Lara over there in the United Kingdom,
in front of his own fans, that'll get him a better purse, a better payday. And if he makes it through that, hey, the Leo Santa Cruz fight is still there.
you make it through Bronco Lara, not saying that he will or won't, that fight's not going anywhere because Lee Wood still is the WBA's regular champion. He still has that secondary title. Now, if Mauricio Lara takes it from him, well, that's a whole different kettle of fish, and that creates an entirely different situation. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. This card is set to go head-to-head with the Joe Joyce versus Joseph Parker Queensberry Promotions pay-per-view. And that's not good for Queensberry's card because that card's a pay-per-view. This fight isn't.
This fight is the cheaper alternative that comes at no additional cost to the DAZN subscriber aside from their subscription.
And that's the situation over there in the United Kingdom. Here in the United States, neither card is a pay-per-view. You get to see Joyce versus Parker by way of ESPN Plus, and you get to see Lee Wood versus Mauricio Lara by way of DAZN. This not being the Stone Age, you can watch both cards simultaneously.
One fight on your smart TV, one fight on your smartphone, computer, or tablet.
It's not an either-or situation for us here in the United States, but over there in the United Kingdom, it might be, because over there in the United Kingdom, one of these fights is a pay-per-view, and one isn't. And they're going head-to-head.
So, I mean, use your head. Which fight do you think most fight fans are going to watch?
The one that costs them more money, or the one that doesn't? I really like the Queensberry Promotion show. Don't misunderstand me. I think that's a great card, and that's saying a lot because Frank Warren doesn't usually put together great cards, but that's a great card.
So is this one. No easy fights on here.
Maxie Hughes may end up having his hands full with former champion Kid Galahad. Terry Harper may end up having her hands full with Hannah Rankin. And in the main event, Lee Wood, who earlier this year just fought in a Fight of the Year candidate.
He may end up having his hands full with Mauricio Lara, who's not a streamlined or nuanced fighter, but man alive, can that guy punch.
It doesn't behoove Lee Wood to get into a shootout with this guy. What Lee Wood needs to do here is work off the counter, set the guy up, because Mauricio Lara, hard puncher that he might be, he swings wide.
There are plenty of countering opportunities there because this is a guy that likes to punch.
So don't punch with him. Set him up.
I don't think anybody can accuse Lee Wood of ducking Leo Santa Cruz to take on a guy like this. This guy's more dangerous than Leo Santa Cruz.
Look for Wood versus Lara later on next month on the 24th. And finally, reigning WBC champion, who also happens to be retired, Tyson Fury stated, "When Alexander Usyk was an amateur boxer, sucking his mother's nipples, I was British heavyweight champion. He was boxing at 75 kgs, 165 pounds. This is why I call him a middleweight. He got stopped by Matvey Korobov as a middleweight."
Tell the whole story, why don't you? You didn't even qualify to represent the United Kingdom in the Olympics.
You didn't medal in any department. You didn't do anything as an amateur, but the guy you're talking about, he did.
He won the gold for his country. What did you do for yours?
Nothing, because you didn't qualify. You didn't get to represent them.
You weren't good enough.
Started talking about his rival British heavyweight, saying there has only ever been me. They tried to compete, but when they compete, they get beat at the highest level. It's no disrespect to Anthony Joshua. He's a 24-3 fighter, but at world-class boxing, he just can't cut it.
You got beat by John McDermott.
He was a journeyman. He wasn't a world-class boxer, and if not for one of the most egregious gift decisions on British boxing soil, you'd have
a loss in the column, too. This is a guy who can barely handle victory, so how would he have handled a defeat?
Tyson Fury prides himself on having made it this far as an unbeaten fighter, but what he doesn't mention is he had the assisted aid of a gift decision over John McDermott that he didn't deserve, performance-enhancing drugs in the Christian Hammer fight in the form of nandrolone, an impromptu hiatus when he was contractually obligated to face Vladimir Klitschko, taking 2.5 years away from the sport.
I'm sure UKAD's investigation into that nandrolone had nothing to do with that.
He says, "It ain't my my fault that he being Alexander Usyk, just gone and battered AJ. It ain't my fault that's happened twice in a row. I haven't got to live with, a middleweight said about me. I haven't got to live with that.
No, because you're asking for $500 million to fight that middleweight, so you don't have to live with that.
For those not already aware, Tyson Fury set a going on a 6-day deadline for the powers that be to come up with the money to get him in the ring. Get him in the ring with Alexander Usyk. And as you can imagine, the asking price is quite expensive.
There's only a couple of places you're going to find that kind of money.
When it comes to this past weekend's fight, Tyson said, "I've seen more excitement in Morecambe on a Friday night. Without being disrespectful to Joshua, he's found his level. He lost 3 of his last 5, so he's clearly come up short, come up wanting at a high level."
Yeah, you had to rob a guy at a low level to stay an unbeaten fighter.
Some people seem to think because a lot of time has passed since then that somehow that changes things, but it doesn't. The only reason Tyson Fury is an unbeaten fighter here today is because he robbed John McDermott of a decision he so clearly deserved. And even if he did beat him in the second fight, that doesn't mean you didn't rob him in the first.
You should have a loss in the column, my friend.
You're a fake, a phony, a fraud, a shyster, a con man. Tyson Fury says,
Bear in mind, this is the same Tyson Fury that said he's not a businessman, he's a Spartan. This is the same Tyson Fury that said he doesn't care about money.
"This fight is purely about money. I'm happily retired. I've got plenty of money. It needs to be the biggest payday in the world. Floyd Mayweather got $400 million for Manny Pacquiao. I want $500 million for Usyk." And what Tyson Fury's leaving out is that he's not actually the draw that Floyd Mayweather Jr. was. That fight generated what it generated organically due to fan interest. And there are not enough fans interested in Tyson Fury to generate that amount of money organically.
The most that you can hope is that some sheik, some guy over there in Saudi Arabia, some guys are interested enough to put up that amount of money themselves because they've got it.
You ain't got enough fans to generate that amount of money, that kind of scratch, that kind of cash. Not you, not by yourself. The most that you can hope is that somebody puts up an insanely large site fee and maybe you can get the money that way.
And I don't think it's going to be $500 million. I don't think that.
So if we're going to take what Tyson Fury says at face value, including these insane dollar amounts, you're telling me you need $500 million to fight a guy that you claim is just a blown-up middleweight? A guy you claim you can beat easy? Why would you need that much money for an easy fight?
That's if we take what Tyson Fury says at face value. You can never actually take what Tyson Fury says at face value. He's a walking, talking contradiction.
I wouldn't rule out the Saudi Arabians putting up a large site fee for this fight. I mean, they were interested enough in Joshua versus Usyk, right? So why wouldn't they be interested in Tyson Fury versus Alexander Usyk? They might be, though. Tyson Fury, and this is important, he's not the draw that Anthony Joshua is. He's not as fan-friendly, not as marketable. So if they do put up a site fee,
whatever number that is, it will reflect what they're expecting to make from the fight. And I don't think they're expecting to make $500 million.
Not that Tyson Fury's serious when he says it's going to take $500 million.
If he were, that would make this an according to Hoyle duck.
If he were serious, you could file this under fighters that priced themselves out.
A lot of different ways of getting out of a fight, and that's one of them. Ask for an amount of money nobody can give you.
I don't think he's serious, though.